Hello everybody, and before today's video, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to TeePublic because Teespring has been having some issues with my shirts where they have not been telling me about sales that have been going on that I know have been going on because people have told me they bought the shirt and they've been showing me the purchases that they've made, but it hasn't been showing up on my end. And so I don't know what's going on there. I'm still trying to get back with them, but in the meantime, I went ahead and started a store over on TeePublic because I've kind of want to diversify anyway. And right now there's actually a really good sale going on the website for the next 36 hours. You have $13 t-shirts there. $13 t-shirts. You can get an Odin's movie blog t-shirt for $13. You can also get a hoodie. You can get a kid's t-shirt. You can also get a mug. It also comes with a lot of things like phone cases, laptop cases, magnets, tank tops. They've got pretty much everything in the standard Odin's movie blog logo with my favorite color, green. So go ahead and check that out. You got some different phone options here. Most of them are iPhones. You do get some Galaxy options as well. But anyway, check out the merchandise. I'd appreciate it. Support the channel. Check the link in the description. All right, now for the video. Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well. And today we got to talk about this rumor that's been floating around and why there's a lot of problems with it. And it is being covered right now by Bounding Into Comics, but has been covered by many other YouTube channels, especially many members of the Fandom Menace. And I think that most of us have been very clear that this is just rumor and speculation. There really isn't a whole lot of clear truth to this quite as much as we might like it to be true. But also there is also a practical matter that I need to bring up about why this practically just cannot physically be true. And so this rumor, of course, is that Disney has remade almost the entire film of The Rise of Skywalker and that they're still in the process of reshooting it. And this is the reason why the trailer has been delayed and they are still making these reshoots. The problem with this mindset is that it doesn't really coincide with everything that we know about what it takes to render a film's visual effects. And so this is where my, I guess you could say, practical mind comes into play because, as you all know, I'm very big on visual effects. I'm very critical of visual effects. I am very, I care about them a lot. So one of the many reasons why I had issues with Godzilla King of the Monsters because I thought that the visual effects were fine, but because so much of the movie was just already shown in advance and those effects that we saw in the trailers really didn't look that much better in the movie, it was a big problem. Of course, there were story elements that had a problem with that film too, but as you all know, I'm pretty big when it comes to visual effects. It's one of the many reasons why Avatar has just not aged very well in my mind, why I had issues with various other films that have come out, and I've talked at length about these films. It's one of the reasons why I loved Alita Battle Angel, because the effects were actually pretty damn good for what they were, especially with the fact that I did not like the big eyes of Alita Battle Angel right away, and then as soon as I saw the movie, I was like, oh, they actually work with the character, and I was able to get past those things, right? So here's the problem when it comes to saying that 75%, because that is the number that's being thrown around, is 75%. It was first brought up by Lord Doomcock, who of course is a good guy, a good YouTuber, and obviously I know that he is talking about this as being speculation and rumor at this point, not actually having the truth to it that I think most of us might want it to be. And he says this is not some kind of casual 2-week reshoot. This is almost a 75% remake. They shot the thing, so there are 6 possible main edits, and even when there was no way to put it together, that would not have flopped. And so this number, 75%, is the one that's being thrown around a lot by many other YouTubers in the Fandom Menace. And I think it's important for us to understand that practically that just does not make any sense. Because when it comes to Star Wars, when it comes to modern-day Marvel films, when it comes to modern-day big-budget films, what are most of those films made of? Visual effects. Most of those films are made up of visual effects, of special effects. And those effects take a lot of computer memory, take a lot of time in order to render at full resolution. And so the reason why saying that you have 75% reshoots is that means that you would have to be reshooting scenes that have CGI backgrounds that take place in CGI states, and that means that you would have to essentially redo much of those effects. Even if you're just doing minor changes, those minor changes to visual effects can take much longer to render because, as you all know, if anyone's ever made a YouTube video before, or if anyone's ever exported a video file, you know that depending on the type of, chip you have, depending on the type of RAM that you have and the system that you have, it could take a very little bit of time or a lot of time. I mentioned this on the stream last night where, for me, whenever I have a 10-minute video at 1080p resolution and I'm exporting it at a YouTube-esque or a YouTube-type rendering effect, meaning that it is very low, it's about low quality 1080p. So it's still a 1080p image. However, because it has to be compressed, right, the image has to be made smaller in order for it to be uploaded into the YouTube service, because YouTube can only, I mean, even if you upload a giant file to YouTube, they're still going to do some compressing on their end because of the way that, uploading files works. Whenever you have a digital image, it automatically will get compressed no matter how, no matter how hard you try and keep it at its original image. If you are passing it through a internet connection, if you're passing through an internet image, you're going to go ahead and have some type of compression that takes place. And so when you take that into mind, where a 10-minute video that I make for my computer setup takes about 2 minutes to render, if I were to then add a 4K 60 frames per second resolution, and even if I were to make that 4K 60 frames per second resolution a YouTube video, a 2-minute video would take upwards of 10-15 minutes to render with my current system. Now, my system's relatively fast in comparison to many other systems, and I'm sure we could talk about how many of these Hollywood types are going to have some of the fastest systems possible, but it's still going to take time to render. So imagine this. Imagine that you have about a 2.5-hour film, which this film's likely going to be, probably 2.5-hour, 45-minute film, and most of that film, right, over half of that film is made of CGI, is made up of CGI special effects. And let's assume that they're going to be rendering those effects at 2K resolution. What's 2K resolution? So let's say you have a Blu-ray. So let me go show you ahead a Blu-ray that my boy Bruce sent me recently. So a Blu-ray, right? Blu-rays are at 1080p resolution. Probably you've heard of that expression before, even if you know nothing about visuals, right? 1080p resolution. What that means is that it's essentially a 2K transfer of a film, right? So 2K, right? 1080p. Hopefully you understand how they are closely connected to each other. Now, when it comes to visual effects in Hollywood, most films tend to render their effects, meaning export their movies, export their effects at what we say as 2K resolution. And the reason why is because it takes a long time to render a movie that is heavily CGI at anything higher than that. So let's say they were to do that 4K resolution instead. Well, think about that for a second. If you're going from 2K resolution to 4K resolution in your export process, you are doubling the size of the image, meaning that you are essentially doubling the time that it takes. So that's the reason why they end up not rendering their visual effects at 4K resolution. So let's say you pick up a 4K Blu-ray, and let's say it's a modern film that has a lot of CGI. Most of the time, that film is going to have been rendered at 2K resolution because most of the film is going to have already been rendered at the 2K resolution. So they'll upscale it to 4K, right? They'll make it a little bit, basically think of it as the 4K screen, 4K image is just a little bit bigger, more information on there. So what they do for most 4K releases where they're actually at 2K movies, right? So it's essentially the same quality that you have on a DVD, or rather on a Blu-ray, is that they essentially will just make it so that it can fit into the 4K format, but it still has technically the same 1080p resolution. It still has the same technical 2K resolution. And of course, with 4K, you're able to add things like HDR support, which is, again, coloring, and that is a whole other discussion. But the point is that it takes a lot of data in order to do that. It takes a lot of time in order to render just even a normal 2K disc or a normal 2K resolution. So the reason why I have a problem when I hear this number being thrown around, oh, it's 75%, they have a 75% of the movie is being remade, is because practically that does not work. Because if over half of this movie is being remade, that means that much of their CGI has to be re-rendered. And when the film comes out in December, there's just no way you can have all of those films, or rather all of those effects, be re-rendered in 2K resolution. I mean, God forbid if they're doing 4K resolution at this point, because honestly, they haven't really released that information yet. But if they are, that takes a lot of time. Even if you have a Hollywood studio, even if you have a visual effects company that they specialize in rendering these effects, even if you have all of those things, it's still going to take a long time. Because every time you make an edit to it, guess what? You're going to have to essentially re-render it, right? So think about how you make a video and you edit it and then you need to re-edit it, right? Well, when you re-edit the film, what are you going to be doing? You're going to be re-exporting that film. So if you are re-editing 75% of the movie, you are now adding on months of time that you've already spent on rendering effects that you don't have now, right? And of course, there's probably some people that will respond with, oh, what if it's not exactly 75%? Or what if he's just talking about the non-CGI scenes and they're just reshooting those? That's definitely a possibility. What I would say is most likely true, and I think that obviously, I think Doomcock is getting some good information that there are some behind-the-scenes chaos going on right now, and they're having to reshoot certain things, or they're having to recut certain things, right? I think recut would make more sense to me than to completely reshoot because of those issues that I just brought up. But also, I think that at the end of the day, it does still work within the context of what we're talking about here because of the fact that this film is obviously in production hell. The fact that the trailer has been delayed. The fact that they're saying this is the final trailer and we've only gotten a teaser trailer and an expansion teaser trailer. We haven't actually gotten an official full-scale trailer yet at this point in time, right? I mean, obviously, I think that we looked at that and we think most films, even smaller films than this, have had 2-3 trailers, 2-3 official full-length trailers at this point. And this film hasn't really had that. As we've talked about before, the hype for this film really is non-existent at this point. Yeah, you might have a few people here and there that are excited for this film, but for the most part, people that normally would be excited for this film really aren't. They've kind of gotten checked out ever since The Last Jedi came out. out. They've said, okay, this story just doesn't make sense anymore. The story has not been, it's very, very clear that Disney and Lucasfilm are saying this story is not made for you anymore because we're focusing on pure diversity for the sake of diversity, not because it makes sense, but because we just want to go ahead and push agendas to this. And now all of a sudden they realize, oh, we're losing fans. We're not selling merchandise anymore. Solo lost us money. Wait a minute. Now we need those fans back. So, hey, here's Palpatine, everybody. Or, hey, everybody, we're going to bring Luke back again, right? Remember how great that was? Oh, hey, you really liked Captain Phasma. And even though she only had 5 minutes of screen time in the other film, and yet she was considered to be a main villain after 5 minutes of screen time, it doesn't matter. We're going to bring her back again too, probably, right? They're going to do everything they can in this trailer coming out tomorrow, allegedly coming out tomorrow, because obviously they could easily push it back again still. Something tells me because it's coming out during a football game and because of contracts, it probably is true that's coming out, especially since the movie ticket sales are going on sale tomorrow. They're going to kind of want to have something that they can attach to those promotions, right? So a trailer would definitely be something they could do. But what do you think they're going to try and do? Because they are now announcing that they're doing ticket sales tomorrow, that means that they're going to want this to be one of the greatest and highest opening day ticket sales of all time. So one way that they're going to try and do that is they're going to put everything into this trailer. I honestly think that they're either going to leak the entire plot to this movie, or what they're going to do is they're going to throw in elements that have not been leaked to this point, at least officially, and they're going to try and say, look, we have this person coming back. We have this person coming back. Oh, you never know who's going to show up in a Star Wars movie, and they're going to try and use that nostalgia, right? Jeremy Geeks and Gamers just made a video about this and mentioned that he thinks the trailer is going to be chock filled with nostalgia. I think there's a lot of truth to that, right? And that's all that they can do, right? That's all that they can do at this point. All they can do is rely on nostalgia. But getting back to the main point of the article, right? That the rumor is, and I'm glad, I always love Bounding into Comics because they always make it clear saying rumor, speculation, report, and they always make those differentiations. And I know that Doomcock has done the same thing with his video as well. And I think that it's definitely not sat out of the realm of possibility that they are doing reshoots or at the very least re-edits of the film because initial audience reaction or initial reaction to their test screenings has not been nearly as positive as they thought that it was going to be. So I think that you could see some major change happen, but to say 75% of the movie is being reshot is just unrealistic and unpractical for the reasons that I just laid out, because of rendering effects, how long it takes to render effects, and because of the fact that even though you have a major Hollywood studio behind it, it's still going to take a long time to do this, especially when you're dealing with a movie that's 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes long. We don't even have the official runtime of the film at this point, last time I checked. And so I think it's something that we need to be very careful about. Again, a lot of people have been covering it. No one's been covering it as saying this is fact, as just been covered as a rumor and speculation at this point. But I just wanted to kind of say that the rumor doesn't really hold a whole lot of water when you bring in practical reason and practical judgment, because it's unrealistic to render those that amount of film, right? It's not realistic to render that amount of a film in the 2K or 4K resolution because of the amount of time it takes to render visual effects. And if anyone that's ever worked with visual effects before, or as I said before, worked in exporting video at any time, you know exactly what I'm talking about here, because even if you've got the highest end system, there's still going to be limitations to that system, right? There's still going to be limitations to what you can do, especially when you're dealing with a file size as large as this. I think someone that could probably speak to this pretty well would be someone like an Ivan Ortega, who recut The Last Jedi, and it took him months to do it. And a lot of that probably had to do with the fact that it took a lot of time to render. It took a lot of time to export those files, obviously the editing process itself. And he wasn't even dealing with the full resolution files. He wasn't even dealing with the full resolution that these film studios have to deal with. Keep in mind that the DVD and Blu-ray versions that we get, and the Blu-ray version that I imagine that he probably was able to take his file from, is not anywhere close to the original file size that they're dealing with right now. And so when you take all of those things into account, it helps to kind of give away and say that there's no truth to the speculation that 75% of the movie is being reshot. Are there reshoots? Most likely. It seems very likely at this point that that would be happening because, as I've said, there really isn't a whole lot of hype for this film, and they don't like that because it means that this film could be one of the lowest grossing Star Wars films in the main canon saga. Obviously, that would not count things like Rogue One or Solo, which is one of the worst performings. Again, the only Star Wars film to lose money at this point. And of course, it was under Disney's Lucasfilm. Not even the prequels, as rough as they were as films, lost any money. So I think it's something important for us to look into, something for us to talk about. But it's always important for us to be very clear and hopefully to use some more practical judgment. Anyway, what are your thoughts about this? Do you think that they are reshooting some of the movie, none of the movie, or maybe they're just re-edits? I would like to hear your thoughts about this. Maybe you have more information that I'm missing out on. If you think that I'm wrong in my speculation or wrong in my practical judgment about visual effects and how to render them, please let me know in the comment section below as well. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, smash the like button, give me a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.